welcome everyone. So we are kicking off the OpenXdata 2026 panel on the open source data. And I'm Meehan. I'm a data infra engineer, and at Onehouse, I'm also an Apache Hudi PMC member. So today we are going to dive into the big question. So what's the real secret to keeping an open source data project alive and kicking for years? So it turns out it's not just about writing great code. It's all about intentionally designing the community around it. So this panel are open by design. So it is going to look past the usual jargon, and we are going to actually talk about practical things like building strong governance, making it super easy for new people to jump in and contribute. Also figure out how to navigate this well shift towards AI-driven development in this era. And then you all know what is happening now. So if you maintain a project or contribute or lead a community, we hope to give you some tangible takeaways for building a sustainable community-led future. So we have an incredible group of maintainers and leaders from across the open source ecosystem to discuss all of this. So quick intro of everyone. So Yuxia is a software engineer at Alibaba, a Flink committer, and also Flu's PPMC member. His current focus is on the deep integration between Flu's and data lake systems like Python, Iceberg, and Hudi. So welcome, Yuxia.
Hey, thanks, Ethan, and hi, I'm Yuxia, and currently I'm building Apache Flux. Think of it as a real-time layer that sits in front of your data lake. Happy to be here.
Cool, that's great. I think your expertise on these multiple projects and then this Flux project, which is currently growing, will benefit our panel discussion. So also next team. So Tim is a staff engineer at IBM on the Watson Data Presto team. And he's also a TSC chair for Presto DB, where he helps steer the project's technical direction and also community governance. Welcome, Tim.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Cool, thanks. Next, Prashant. Prashant is a PMC member of Iceberg and a committer on Apache Polaris. He's currently working at Snowflake, leading its interoperable governance efforts. And previously, he worked at AWS, integrating Apache Iceberg into EMR and Redshift. Welcome, Prashant. Thanks. I think I didn't hear you, but I feel your energy. That's great. Shawn, next Shawn. So Shawn is software engineer at AWS EMR and a committer for Apache Hudi and Apache Iceberg. So he is currently focused on Iceberg RAS implementation. Welcome, Shawn.
Hello, nice to be here.
Cool, great. So all right, let's start with the basics. So Tim, you've spent a lot of time thinking about governance and steering open source projects. From that perspective, what really differentiates a community that's actually effective and sustainable from others over time?
Right, and I think that there's actually a little bit of tension between effectiveness and sustainability, and both should be measured independently. So an effective project is basically one that's able to push out code changes efficiently. And so there's some anti-patterns are, one individual or company blocks other people who want to contribute, or reviews are not being done, code reviews are not being done, or merges are blocked for some reason, flaky tests, whatever. So that all drags down your ability to push out code. And the opposite problem that you could have on effectiveness is pushing out too much code. So the code doesn't have good quality, and basically the bar isn't very high. And so you're just collecting a lot of code that doesn't follow a very sustainable path, and you're just left with bloat. So that's on effectiveness, and on sustainability, that's a totally different problem. So here the problem is, can the project survive someone leaving the project? And there's many different failure modes. One of the failure modes could be that you have governance, but the governance isn't it's kind of like the letter of the law but not the spirit of the law. So you say that you have open governance, but in reality only one project is really contributing to it, or only one individual is really contributing to it. And another kind of like way that fails is there's just no culture of helpfulness, and people are not kind of working together. People are siloed, and one company brings one set of changes and they're totally isolated. You have other committers that review those changes, and you don't have a really good cohesion across all the various different stakeholders on the project. And so there's actually a tension between these two things. So to kind of fix this problem of sustainability, you have to make sure that people talk about changes, that decisions are made in the open, that there's some kind of consensus, and that all kind of can slow down your ability to push out code. And there's an argument to be made that that's a good thing. Like, you need to make sure that there's consensus and direction, and that's very clear. And on the opposite end of the spectrum is you can skew way too heavily on effectiveness, so like the ability to push out code, and no one knows what you're building except you or your teammates. And so in my opinion, it's a little bit of an art, and it's going to be different for every project, but you can't skew in just one or the other. You have to find a sensible middle ground. And I can tell you that like the experience at Presto is very much like this. So Presto was kind of went to the Linux Foundation in 2020, and very much started off on the effectiveness track. So like we were very good at pushing out the code, but we weren't good at pushing out the code where we were bringing other people into the project as we were going along. And so that's taken some time to skew toward making it sustainable, so that there's more of a kind of like a sustainable community that is durable to one company or one person who joins or leaves the project. And yeah. I think like the takeaway is that it's not just about it can't just be a code dump. It has to be an open community, and you can't trust if it skews kind of like too heavily on pushing out the code, then you can't trust it.
Yeah, I think that's pretty insightful. I think this is everyone like maintaining a project facing like what is the right trade-off to kind of balance between these two. And actually, I think Yuxia, you may have like a similar experience. I think building on what Tim mentioned, I think you've also been involved in like fast evolving a large scale system where like community grows quickly, like Flux and Flink. So as that growth happens, what are like, let's say, the most critical pillars you think that keep a community's collaboration resilient and healthy? And also like, I think going back to Tim's point, like how do you make sure like project can move forward like with more effectiveness?
Yeah, I think it's a good question, and I want to stand in front of Flux, and Flux is a relative new project, and also we are still in Apache incubation. So I'm actually living through this challenge of building a community right now. And the two things I have found maybe critical. And the first openness from the day one when we started Flux. We made a conscious decision to do all design discussion on the mail list and in GitHub issues, not in internal meetings. That sounds obviously, but it's actually hard when you have a core team that can just talk to each other in the office. And we have to discipline of ourselves if it's not on the mail list, it doesn't happen. So the transparency is what attracts external contributors, because they can see the full picture, not just the code. And the second is treating every contributor as a potential committer. We take code review seriously, not as gatekeeping, but as mentoring. when someone opens a PR, a pull request, we try to give detailed and constructive feedback quickly. We have already seen people go from their first PR to becoming regular contributors within a few months. And that's the most rewarding things as a community builder. And I think for a young project, the early culture you said really defines what the community becomes. So we are very intentional about getting it right from the start.
Got it. Yeah, I think these open discussions in mailing lists and then proactively providing feedbacks to PRs for new contributors are actually pretty valuable. That's also what Hudi projects are actually pursuing as well. I think this actually brings up a good point around like contributions in the community. I think Prashant, you've contributed across multiple open source efforts and ecosystem. So from your experience, what are the most effective ways to, let's say, lower the barriers for meaningful contributions, and especially for those joining outside the core maintainer circle? So we talk about, like, let's say, mailing list discussions and PRs. And do you have any other take on making this better? I think Prashant, we somehow couldn't hear you, or maybe if Adam or David can help here as well. No, not yet.
Prashant. Maybe I will get you off the stage and then back onto the stage.
Okay, so we can get your opinion later. So then let's get to Shawn. So on the same topic, so you've been also working across different organizations, contributor groups. So how do you approach keeping, let's say, contributors engaged and motivated with open source projects over time?
Yeah, I think it's a very good question. I think it can be reduced to a couple of things that what makes the couple of important things that keeps the community a community, right? And first of all, I think a clear technical direction, a North Star, or Polaris. I think Snowflake people will prefer that name, but anyway, I think the clear technical direction will be very important. That because not saying that use cases or customer stories are not important. It's just since we're a community, multiple companies, multiple organizations are involved, and we all have different priorities, which is pretty normal. And having a clear technical direction is very important to unify everybody together to run towards the same goal. Without that, it will be very hard to determine what problems are we trying to solve. Or, for example, if we there are many debates in table formats communities saying that to define a problem, right? Like if this is a file format problem or this is a table level problems. I think having a clear technical direction for that would be very important, so we don't mess up with some users, like because favoring certain use cases too much can easily backfire.
Yeah.
Another thing, another important thing is it's like the feedback loop. I think if anybody just works on any sort of open source project, you will easily notice that ideas or proposals are not rejected, right? They're just ignored, left open in the community. So setting up a feedback loop is very important, so people feel included in the community. People have interesting ideas, they post it there. If they ignore it, it will be a huge setback for it would be demoralizing, right, for other community members as well. So keep the discussions going. Just like have a friendly debate on certain technical design decisions would be very helpful to keep the community healthy.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think this format work becomes very spicy at sometimes. But I think from the open source community standpoint, like we all should support users better and then listen to their problems or pain points. I think that matters more. And also similar to contributors, like I think as Yuxia mentioned, like we should support them from like the core maintainer standpoint, make their experience better as well. Okay, I think Prashant, are you back? If not, I think we can move on to the next topic, and then you can provide thoughts on that as well. So we've covered like attracting and retaining great people, like about users, contributors, and that this brings us actually to the next great topic, like collaboration now itself is changing. And let's talk about how new tools and the rise of AI are shifting our entire development of workflow. Because now we can see that there are a lot of AI generated code. There's also AI assisted reviews and etc. So I think Shawn, from your perspective, how are you seeing that this is changing the way contributors collaborate and move the work forward in open source?
Yeah, I think it's pretty interesting to witness the dynamic shifting. Right now, it's easier to notice that the pressure has shifted to the reviewer side, right? Because it's just so easy to write new code at this era, and there are just like more and more PRs opens every day, and the reviewer suddenly becomes a bottleneck. So I think it kind of raises bar for maintainers. Like you just have to be very careful to review the code because, I mean, no shame for using AI to write code. I use that as well. But for reviewers, it's just a higher bar there. You have to be more careful than before. And I think after that, I believe the discussion and collaboration will become much more important than before. Right? Because we all use AI to write code, but before actually opening a PR, right? So I don't think there is one. I haven't made any maintainer that's happy to say like a 2,000 lines of code PR dropped in the repository with little to no context there. So I would expect the workflow to be like first you open up the proposal, or you just like reach out to certain maintainers to start a discussion, right? Or in the mail list is totally fine. Get the discussion started and have attracted a few people's attention, and then you get a general alignment before the actual POC happens in the GitHub. So I think that's the best workflow there. And the last thing I can think of is like a few days ago, I had an interesting conversation with Jack Ye from LensDB. So Jack mentioned that since they assume that everybody is using AI to write code, when they leave reviews, they try to format the comments better for AI to understand. I think that's actually a very interesting direction that now we don't expect ourselves to work with human directly. I mean, but like with humans agents directly. So to make the entire process more efficient, I think there are many interesting explorations can be done on that front.
Yeah, definitely. I think AI of these agents have disrupted our workflow, and I think Prashant, I see you smiles in the middle of a discussion. Do you have anything to add? For example, how this AI workflow or how AI assisted code reviews can help, and does that also make contribution barrier lower, or how does that make like our maintainer like alive easier or harder?
So it's very likely that his mic is not working, but he can nod.
Okay.
So maybe yes or no
I
question.
hear you then.
Yeah, he'll communicate in binary.
Okay, so we missed you, Prashant, but let's continue. I think continuing on this AI and automation or workflow in open source. So I think we all kind of agree that like human needs to be involved better. in this process and make sure like the community can grow in a good way and work with humans, both humans and agents. So Tim, from your standpoint, do all of these human fundamentals of trust and governance become more important in this AI era? And also, do they need to evolve entirely, as Shawn mentioned?
I think Shawn brought up a great point. Like in some ways, just on the governance part, good governance becomes even more important because the barrier for entry is so drastically lower. And so like good hygiene from a governance perspective just becomes absolutely critical because you need to differentiate what is high quality curated code in an open source project from someone's hallucinated code dump, to put it in blunt terms. On the trust aspect, like I don't think that trust really can, it can't go away. Trust is what underpins open source. And so like, if you accept that, then, like you can't trust the AI because the AI won't fix problems. The AI, like you can delegate the AI to fix some problems, but you can't, like the AI is not a person that you can reach out to on call that you can say like, yeah, they can do this. Like there has to be a human involved. So like ultimately the trust has to stay with humans. And, like just going back into, kind of like this recurring topic, trust is not easier to violate. Like you can put out a 2,000 line of code PR that doesn't follow any of the project's conventions, doesn't follow the architecture of the project, and is just kind of a waste of the agent's tokens and also the community's time. And that just destroys trust. And so like in all these ways, trust becomes more important. Like you have to understand what the folks in the project are building. You have to, like take the time to learn the fundamentals and, be involved in the community, in the mailing list or TSC meetings or whatever that is. And so like, if anything, I think both governance and trust become way more important than they have before. For the work for maintainers, as best as I can tell, like, because now you have all this code that needs to get reviewed, like, velocity has increased, there's like exactly like Shawn said, there's more of a pressure on maintainers. And so, I think probably what will end up happening is that a lot of the work ends up moving to a higher altitude where you might have done 10 rounds of line by line code reviews before, and now you delegate some of the first few rounds to AI. And and you focus initially kind of like on the higher level things like the architecture, the direction, and some of the higher altitude things. And once again, this, just kind of like reinforces the need for governance. Like you need to have a forum so that you can propose a change, and there has to be clear rules about that. All of that makes governance way more important. And so you need a community to manage that. So like you can't do that effectively without governance.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I think this trust has become even more important now, and I hope AI agents can get better at code reviews because now you cannot catch all of these architectural design problems and sum up the invariants like each project maintains. I hope it grows better to make our life easier. But until that happens, I think we have to do our own job. And regardless of whether AI agents are there, I think trust must be maintained among humans. That's how community comes together. I feel like this is a really great and incredible discussion. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Tim, Shawn, Yuxia, and Prashant for providing like your opinions and like your experiences at this. I think we can probably keep going on for like another hour or so. I think these are all great topics, but I think that's the time we have now. And then thank you everyone for joining this panel. I hope like this has given everyone like a good blueprint of what the problems we are solving and what we are trying to evolve in the age of in the AI era. So thank you very much.
Nice. Thank you very much, everybody. Let's see if we have a couple of questions from the audience. And if not, we're going to go right in to the raffle giveaway. Okay, we have one from, actually, we have a few. So Rahul is asking, I'm going to put this up on the stage. What's your preferred strategy for dedupe and idempotency keys when events come from multiple systems with Hudi?
Okay, so I guess it's a question specific on Hudi. I think we suggest using like the upstream operation using the primary key specified. And it's coming from multiple systems. Usually it's better to stream those through like a single system like Kafka, and then using let's say Spark or Hudi streamer to do that. If you have specific requirements, I can follow up
Nice.
with offline.
Yeah, we can put that in the chats too, and you guys can connect. There,
Cool.
we have one more question here. Okay, this seems like a longer one. Is there any gatekeeper stack technology used by professional developers in this community to secure their code? It may take one malicious injection, let it be prompt injection or SQL injection, to disrupt the community contribution.
If I understand the question correctly, I think that's GitHub, and I think that's the approved button on GitHub. It's possible I might have misunderstood the question though.
Saurav, if you want to unpack this and zoom in a bit more, feel free to do that. Nice. Well, if so, stick around in the chat, Saurav, as well, and you can continue to unpack it in all its layers. And to our panelists, thank you very much, everybody, for coming and contributing. We appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.